Hey gang, welcome back to Joe Daddy's Garage. Today's video will be a viewer's project video. It seems like it's been a while since I posted one of those. This video is from Don in Portland, and he's going to tell us about his 1966 Mustang that he calls Betsy. Now I will point out, Don sent me a really long video. Lots of information and some great stories about his car, and I don't want to post the whole video in one segment because we might lose viewers in the process. I want everybody to hear the story, and I'd rather break this down into segments. So this will be part one in the story of Betsy. Don?
Hi Barry, it's Don from Portland, and this here is my 66 Mustang Coupe Betsy. Let's see, I've got the VIN information here on my phone. Hardtop, T-code, 200 cubic inch, 65A, which is hardtop standard interior bucket seats. Z-code for paint, which is a medium sage, which is that green color. It's, you know, you'll see it in the trunk when we get around to that. Black vinyl interior, a 6/24/66 production date, delivered to the Seattle district, although it was purchased here in Portland from Francis Ford, I believe. A 320 axle ratio and a 3-speed manual transmission. And I have to say, that's one of the really bad 3-speed transmissions. It's a super lightweight duty one. I had to repair it a couple of times, and then I just gave up on it. Anyway, I paid $845 for this car, and I was trying to buy it from a friend of mine. Okay, $845. I didn't say when. It was 1971. This is my high school car. My friend wouldn't sell the car to me for a decent price, so he took it down to a local dealer, and Francis Ford, as a matter of fact, and traded it in on a 70 Fastback. I went down to that dealer the very next day, and I bought the car for $845, which was, you know, $350 cheaper than he wanted to sell it to me for. But this was all in the plan. He's a friend of mine. I drove it around for about a year like that, and then I went back to that same dealer, and they were getting rid of some 289 Hypro 5-bolt bell housing motors that they hadn't stocked, that they hadn't been able to sell, so they were discounting it for $400, I think. Maybe about $499, something like that. Pretty good deal. And with the help of that friend in his driveway, we hung that motor with a top loader 4-speed. There was a 68 Mustang big block, 390 I think. And I got the rear end out of that. The double exhaust tips. I had to scrounge things like the 5-bolt bell housing. I had to go with the smaller flywheel because of the 5-bolt. And motor mounts, which I still have 2 sets of 65 motor mounts up there. So if you need those, the brackets that go on the frame, yeah, I have 2 sets of those 65 mounts. Anyway, we hung the motor, put it together, and I ended up driving it that way for a couple of years. I drag raced it for a couple of years. It did pretty good. High 13s in the quarter mile. I put a hydraulic cam in it. Took out the mechanical because, hey, I don't like adjusting valves. It's too much for when you're driving it on the road all the time. It was a lot of work. Anyway, but then I got married, and my wife could not drive a stick. So I took the motor and the trans out, and I put in a stock 289 and then a C4 automatic. Drove it that way for a couple of years, but then I got divorced, and gee, for some reason I didn't have any money, so I ended up selling the motor and trans to a friend of my brother, who put it in a 32 3-window coupe that I see driving around occasionally. I put the 6-cylinder back in, but this time I got rid of that crummy old 3-speed, and I put in a top loader 3-speed, which I of course got at the wrecking yard. And I drove it that way for quite a while, but I couldn't leave it alone. I ended up pulling the head off. I ported and polished the head, put a set of headers on it, and I milled the head where the carburetor bolts. I milled that part down flat till I had enough meat to bolt an aluminum plate down that was machined for a Holley 2-barrel. So I put a 300 CFM Holley 2-barrel on there, 350 CFM, somewhere around there. Proceeded to tweak that in tuning, got rid of the old Loadmaster distributor. This is something that if you're still sporting a Loadmaster, get a later distributor, one that has vacuum advance and mechanical advance. And that really makes a big difference. So this thing with the 200, with the milled head, ported and polished headers, it felt about as strong as a stock 289 2-barrel. I was pretty impressed. I drove it that way for a while. And at some point, I went to Denny Aldrich Racing, and I got what then was the latest T5 transmission. They didn't call them like world class or non-world class back then. It was just whether it was an SVO or a standard. And this was supposed to be the best T5. But if it's a world class or not, I don't know. With the T5, a set of 350 rear end gears, the headers, the headwork, and the distributor, I was getting 27, 28 miles to the gallon, and it actually drove and performed really, really well. I mean, I was amazed at how good this thing ran. I wanted to go faster, and I wanted to go racing again, and heck, I was single, so why not? Went to the wrecking yard, picked up a, somewhere around 76 302, tore it down to rebuild it. Back in the day, okay, that's going to be the saying for today, is back in the day. Back in my day, we had to walk to school in the snow, uphill both directions. Put in a set of 351 Windsor valves, polished the combustion chambers, ported, milled the heads. I had to mill each head slightly differently. I think it was 15 thousandths on one head and 20 on the other. What I was trying to do was get down to 54 cc combustion chambers. 10.5 to 1 TRW pistons in there, and 30 over, I'd be running right around 10.5 to 1. So that's actually the way the motor's assembled right now. It's a stock lower end, stock rods, cast crank. It's got a Edelbrock F4B high-rise intake on it with a 1/2-inch spacer block, a 650 CFM Holley on there. That's sort of how the car has been ever since that period of time. So since the mid to late 80s, you'll notice the car is no longer green. I painted it in the 70s, but I had to use lacquer and paint it in my dad's driveway. I mean, it was kind of okay, but I ended up with some tiger striping on the top and on the deck lid, which just really irritated me. But to be expected, shooting out in the driveway improperly, trying to pick a color that looked good on the body, but was different than any other Mustang. That seems to be a theme that I was always trying to make the car different. I mean, there were other things I did to it. I took the springs out of a 67 Fairlane 390. I guess it was a GTA. So it was a Fairlane 390. Put those in the car. I also went to the wrecking yard, and they got a wrecked 66 Fastback GT in there. And so for $40, I got to salvage the entire front end out of it. Pretty much just unbolted it, dropped it out from the underside of the car, and threw it in the back of the truck. For an extra 10 or $20, they threw in the GT gas cap and the rally pack. I've reupholstered the front seats 3 times. The rear seat is original, and the headliner is original. It has a console in it. That was probably one of the only options. It has an inside adjustable outside mirror. It's got the moldings along the rocker panel. I'll show you those later when we get there. This has been a driver ever since I've owned it. I just rolled it over again. So it's got 303,000 some miles on it. I've had to replace the windshield twice, about every 100,000. The sand pits from driving it on the road gets so it's pretty hard to see at night in the rain, so I pull the windshield and put a new one in. The last time I painted it was in the 86 maybe. I stripped it that time and shot it with, well, they called it self-etching epoxy primer. There was one piece of Bondo I found on the right door. Yeah, it's suspiciously about the size of somebody's foot. That I didn't know was there until I stripped it. And that is the only Bondo on the whole car. So rather than tear the car apart and show it to you in pieces, I decided that I would do this video before I even started the project. The car is drivable. I just recently fixed up the brakes. Just like Joe Daddy says, oh my gosh, I get parts. I go get the rotors, and the first set of rotors is machined wobbly. The second set of rotors I get, they machined the back of the hub too big, so the inner race isn't held tight, and the seal won't even stay in. So then I go and I get a third set. The braking surface runs true, the bearing races stay in, the seal stays in, but I think the bolt centers don't run true to the center of the hub. So in other words, the lugs go around this way, have a little bit of run out. So there's there's vibration in that right front wheel that you can't balance and make go away. I'm running Magnum 500 wheels, and those are lug centric. So the lugs absolutely have to be square, and I don't think these are. So, to that end, I have found yet another set of rotors, or original style rotor, that is held on by the studs, lugs, from the backside. So I can replace just the disc and keep my rotor, they run true, and they hold the bearings, and a seal stays in them. I have a whole list of stuff I have to do to the car, but before we get to that, I've decided I want to do this video before I tear the car apart, because while the mechanical parts of this car are fairly molested by me, I have done quite a bit of work, which I'll explain as we go along. But the body, it has all the original trim. It has the all original sheet metal. It's never been in a wreck. This car is basically the way it came when it left San Jose. To that end, if you need measurements, this might be a car that I could take measurements off of to help you. You'd have to help me with that, Barry, because I'm not really sure how to measure from here to here and what are the triangulation points that you would use when you're replacing these panels. I mean, I'm going to have to put floorboard patches in, but that's pretty minor compared to what some of y'all are doing. I mean, my dad used to do that constantly. That's how he supplemented our family income for pretty much all of my lifetime, was buy a wrecked car, fix it up and sell it. Buy another wrecked car, fix it up and sell it. Buy another wrecked car. He was meticulous at those things, and frankly, I should have paid more attention.
I find it pretty amazing that he's done so much to this car. You know, most people don't keep a car that length of time, but he's had that car since high school. He's done multiple engine changes, rear end changes, modifications, drag raced it. I think that's fantastic. And now he's going to dig into it even more and work on doing body work. But I will continue this on with part 2 at some point in the near future. So I want to thank Don for sharing his video and his story of Betsy. If you're interested in having your car showcased on this channel, by all means, send me an email, joedaddysgarage@gmail.com, and we can go back and forth on how to share the video and go from there. I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this video. And that's going to be it. So until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya.